As always, it's wonderful to be with you. And I encourage you, if you want to be engaged this morning, continue on this part of the worship. Get out your Bible and turn to Exodus 20. We'll be reading 3 of the 10 commandments there in Exodus 20. As I already said, it's great to be with you. I didn't know what kind of week everyone had, but it's always the right choice to come here and worship together and focus on spiritual things. This past week, if you've been watching the news, you may have heard of someone named Senna O'Neill. She's a 19-year-old girl in Australia, and she's really become very famous, even more famous than she already was this week. She became an internet sensation when she was only in high school, and currently she has 500,000 Instagram followers. She has 250,000 YouTube subscribers. And all she is a 19-year-old girl that decided to start a blog in high school. What recently she's had is this realization, similar to the preacher in Ecclesiastes, that it's all for vanity. Every bit of it. She's had several interviews done, and she's actually been going through every picture she's ever posted on Instagram, explaining the turmoil and the addiction and all the terrible problems that have come because of her addiction to social media. That she would spend hours upon hours in the morning taking hundreds of pictures just for one picture that she could upload to her 500,000 followers on Instagram. Hours. She even talked about her unhealthy eating habits, trying to make sure that she always had the perfect body for the perfect picture. And she goes into great detail all the things that she did and the time wasted because of this problem, because of social media. And for a while now, I've been wanting to preach on something like this because it has to be a problem in this room. It has to be because we see how big of a problem it is all around the world, not just in the U.S., but everywhere that they have internet. They have a social media problem. For a while, though, I held off on this sermon because I'm thinking it's only geared to a certain group. And maybe some of us are looking at this and saying, this is a young people's sermon. Only young people need to hear this. I'm not really going to need to pay attention to this. And this is the way I felt for a while until my great aunt, who's 70, friended me on Facebook the other day. And then I realized this is probably something that we can all make application from. As well, I've been talking to the middle school kids about it who I've been teaching this quarter. And apparently, and according to them, that Facebook is for old people, of which I apparently am which. So even younger people, a younger generation than me, can tell that the older generation is part of a different type of social media than they are. Yet we're all involved in social media. So what I want to do, and I know this says 7, and I messed up because 2 of them run together, but what I really do is I have 8 biblical principles that you can take about social media. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, this is not going to be a gloom and doom sermon. There are a lot of good things that you can do with these avenues. It's a technology that we've created. It does a lot of good things for us. And I believe that Paul and Peter, if they were alive now, they would have social media accounts and they would do a lot of good with them. So these are just 8, but sort of like 7 biblical principles for social media. The very first one I'm going to bring up is the very first commandment in the 10 commandments. You shall have no other God before me. Let's look at Exodus 20, verse 3. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image, any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that it is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them nor serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the 3rd and the 4th generation of those who hate me, but showing mercy to thousands, to those who love me and keep my commandments. Very early on with the nation of Israel, he declares 2 things. Number 1, you're not going to have any other gods but me. You're not going to bow down or serve any other gods. And what's interesting about this is you think about how many times we spend on our phone. At the house, do we take the same physical position that they did when they were idols? We bow down and we stare at a screen for a very long time. The other thing that we learn is that our God is a jealous God. He is a jealous God, meaning that his feelings get hurt and he gets aggravated when he sees us spend time on things that are not him, things that we take and try to replace him with. I just pulled up some statistics. Business Weekly in 2014 stated that we spend nearly 40 minutes every day on different social media accounts. 40 minutes out of every day. Facebook for 2015 reported that their average users spend at least 20 minutes on Facebook every day. And of course they know that because Facebook tracks absolutely everything you do. But that is 40 minutes just on social media alone. The big question that I always thought of when I was reading about this is, does God become jealous of the large amount of time that we do not spend on Him? If you really do spend 40 minutes a day on social media, do you also spend 40 minutes a day on prayer, Bible study, or just meditating on spiritual things, thinking about God? It's a question you have to ask, because 40 minutes in reality is a long time. 40 minutes just to stare at a computer screen could be 40 minutes that you spend on God. Can different social media accounts become an idol? Absolutely. Do they have to be an idol, however? Can you still serve God? Can you still put God first? Yes. I believe that these are things that can be controlled, that they can be harnessed, and you can still have God number one in your lives and not serve any other God before you. Second thing, and this is really the one that's going to combine with another. Next commandment that I want to look at is verse 14 of chapter 20, which simply says, you shall not commit adultery. Social media, as many of you maybe even seen in your own personal lives, have taken an extreme role in divorce, an extreme role in adultery. This is actually a statistic of 2010 that the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers put that up. But 20% of divorces in 2010 directly involved Facebook. And what was posted on Facebook, what was private messaged on Facebook, what was said or posted on social media. They directly involve them. This is what caused an adultery, or this is what caused a divorce. 80% of lawyers that they interviewed admitted and reported that there was a spike in number of cases when they brought up different things that they had seen on social media as evidence for the divorce case. That this person was talking to this person was doing that. We've seen, and I've heard too many horror stories of when you have married couples that are sound and strong. However, because of these things, they allow themselves to get caught up in social media, reconnect with either strangers or past girlfriends or past boyfriends, and end up creating an unhealthy emotional relationship to these people, which eventually leads to adultery. Because what social media offers is a connection with people that you believe is private, that is completely private. Which we're going to see it's not. It's actually the very opposite of that. But these things can lead to adultery. We're going to be negative at first, and we're going to start going into positive in just a second. What I wanted to tie to commit adultery is another commandment. And this is going to be the last one that we have for the 10 Commandments. But you shall not covet your neighbor's blank. Wife, ox, donkey. Look at verse 17 of chapter 20. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, nor his male servant, nor his female servant, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor anything that is your neighbor's. And I can imagine being in the nation of Israel and having a plot of land by my neighbors. And the thing is I'd only see the things that they have that I may want maybe once a day. I go out into the field, I see their ox. Wow. That's a really nice ox. I wish I had an ox like that. You may only see that maybe once a day. However, social media has changed our society from the way the Israelites had in Exodus 20. What social media does is it allows us to put our possessions out on display for our neighbor to see 24/7. Because you take those pictures and you post that selfie with whatever you just got, and guess what happens? People end up coveting them. And we've seen, again, more horror stories, and I was going to pull statistics from this, but I just decided not to. They were very hard to find, but you found several different news articles where robbers were caught. And the robbers admitted that the reason why they robbed the house is because they saw what they had on social media. They found out on social media when they're going to be on vacation, and then they hit and they robbed the house. And what is that? That is people coveting what their neighbor possesses, whatever it may be. What it is we display these things, we start showing off what we have. Look at my ox. Look how great my ox is. Don't you wish you had an ox like mine? And it is absolutely constant. Now, again, I believe this is something that can be controlled. A couple of years ago, I got a new car. And what did I do? I posted it on a social media account. Look, I got a new car. I'm really excited about it. And I don't think you can take that to a level where you're tempting others to covet. But when you spend and your focus is sort of to O'Neill before she's tried to make this change, when your focus in life is let me see what I can post, what can I show all these people that I've got, then you have a problem. And what that is you're serving yourself. You want that attention. And that all that attention is going to lead to is people coveting your stuff. And probably it's going to lead to thievery because you're going to get those things stolen. Let me take this back to adultery. Replace the word ox for body. Look at my body. Look how great my body is. Don't you wish you had my body? This is what it's become. And this is what you see. And you see brethren that post the most immodest things on the internet for the entire world to see. The entire world to see. And everybody sees it and everybody knows about it. What creeps me out so much is you'll have young ladies that'll post stuff like this, and you have 12-year-olds looking at it, and you have 50-year-olds looking at it. But this is what social media can offer. And this is what you can put out for yourself and bait and tempt others to covet your neighbor's wife. Or even more creepy, covet your neighbor's daughter. Be careful what you post. Be careful what you're letting people see that you have. There are some things that were just meant to stay private. And what social media does is it asks you, would you like to make that public? Do you want to share this with all your friends? And things were just not meant to be that way. And that is not the way that God set it up. Talking about daughters and thinking, of course, I said use the female perspective, but of course this could be for men as well. Men can do the same thing. Post pictures that we should not do. Things that the world was never meant to see in a public way. But going off of that idea of children, another commandment that comes into play, honor your father and mother. And this will be more geared to the children or people still living at your parents' house. You may not want to be called a child anymore. But does your social media profile, and I know many of y'all are not on Facebook according to the middle school kids, but Instagram and Snapchat, which apparently are much cooler because the old people are on Facebook. Do those things honor your father and your mother? When your parents get upset with you, do you complain about it on social media or you just repent privately and handle it? Do you talk ill of your parents on social media? Those things would not be honoring your father and mother. Do you live a respectable life? Are you admired by your peers because of the way you conduct yourself? Would God look at your profile and be like, wow, I am proud of this person's parents? That would be a way to honor your father and mother on social media. And I imagine that there are parents in their rooms that feel honored because of the way that their kids conduct themselves on the internet. And it is a public thing, and this is a way that it actually can do a lot of good. You can show people that have a struggle finding that model family that we see in the Bible, can see a kid and say, wow, because of the things I see he posts on the internet, I can tell they live a godly life. And you can honor your parents in a great way by this. Now let me flip it and talk about the parents. Proverbs 22:6. Of course, you can't go wrong with this passage. Train up your child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Let me just level with the parents. If you have a child that still lives under your roof, do not let them have social media accounts unleashed, meaning that you don't know their username, you don't know their password, and you don't know what they post. Because a lot of situations, I am friends with your kids, and I know what they post. And I don't think you know. I don't think you have a clue. And what it is you can totally take control of this. And you can control them in such a way that you know you are the ones training your child, and you are the ones teaching your child how to handle social media. Justin Bieber has the highest amount of followers on Instagram. The next person that has the highest amount of followers on Instagram is Kim Kardashian. You do not want Justin Bieber and Kim Kardashian training up your children how to use social media. I don't even have kids, and I know that I don't want Justin Bieber and Kim Kardashian to train up my children. They got enough sense to tell that. Now, what you can do instead is you become the dominant influence in their lives. You take control of what they do on the internet, where they go. Do you let them go out on Friday nights and not know where they go? Hey, Dad, Mom, see, I'm gonna go head out to town. No, when you're a child and you still live under your parents' roof, you don't get to say stuff like that. You say, hey, Mom and Dad, I'm going to this place. I'll be back then. Don't let them treat the internet the same way. Hey, I'm going on the internet. You don't know where I'm going. You don't know what I'm going to do, but I'll see you. I'll come back in a little while. You wouldn't let your kids do that way. Don't let your kids handle the internet that way. What's great about this passage, though, it says you train them up in the way that they should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. If social media is getting worse over time, or a bigger temptation over time, or a bigger influence on our lives, it is important as a parent, as you now, to train your children now while they're still living under your roof and you still can control them, so that when they get into the next century, when they get into the next generation and the next avenues of social media, guess what? You've trained them, and now they know how to handle it. And they're not going to depart from the ways that you taught them because you did your job. And you help them in this way. And of course, when they get to be their age, they can think back and thank you for all of the hard work that you put into guarding their hearts in this manner. Another one. This is a good one. Do all things without complaining and disputing. Do we complain and dispute on social media? Absolutely. Now Facebook has this feature where you can go back and see your old posts from 2008 and 2005, and every day it says, Andrew, 5 years ago you posted this. Guess what I see a lot of? Complaining and disputing done by 15-year-old Andrew that thought he had a lot of problems in life, but he really didn't. Philippians 2:14. Do all things without complaining and disputing, that you may become blameless and harmless children of God, without fault in the midst of this crooked and perverse generation, among whom you shine as light in the world. Philippians 2, Paul had just talked about how important humility was in the church. And then he basically says, I'm not going to be able to come to you anymore. Guys, I need to trust you that you're going to work out your own salvation. You're going to take your salvation seriously, and you're going to make sure yourself is reconciled to God. And this is what he says next. Next, do all things without complaining and disputing. Because you live in a wicked world, and guess what? You're supposed to be the shining lights in that wicked world. And Roger Nass brought this up in his exhortation Wednesday night. But now with social media, we have a microscope around us. Everything you do is so public. And you still live in this wicked and perverse generation. And what can you do? You can shine your light by not complaining and disputing about everything. Go back to the parents' example. If you complain and dispute about your parents constantly, are you shining your light? No, you're being a disobedient child, and you're not showing the plan that Jesus has set up for families. If you get on social media and you complain about your church family, and you dispute about your church family, and you let everyone in Gardendale and Jefferson County know about the problems going on at Gardendale, are you shining a light? No. Your friends are going to see that who are not part of the church and say, wow, Gardendale, I'm never going to visit there. Look at all the problems that they have. Which is things that should have never been handled that way. Never should be public knowledge in that fashion. What about another situation? How are they going to think about Jesus if you're someone who complains and disputes all the time? Because I bet that your info on whatever social media account you have, it says Christian. I'm a Christian. Let me complain and dispute about things that you have no business complaining and disputing about. Oh, brother so-and-so said this to me and I'm so angry at him. Sister so-and-so did this to me and I'm so angry at her. Posting that stuff on social media. Do the Lord a favor and take Christian off your info if you're going to live that way. Now, you could do the Lord another favor, which I think is something He'd like. You keep Christian and you shine your light. And you can shine your light maybe even brighter because you have the avenue of this technology. You can reach more people than Paul and Peter could have reached because of this great avenue that we've invented for ourselves. Another one. How about edify and impart grace? This would be a good thing to do. And it's creepy when you read these passages that Paul writes because it's almost like he knows and the Holy Spirit knows that social media is going to exist one day, and it seems like he's actually writing this stuff talking about social media. And I already said at the beginning that I believe that Peter and Paul would have been involved in this because of their epistles. Their epistles, like social media, were supposed to be very public. They were supposed to be. Now, except for, of course, like Timothy and Titus and Philemon that were private letters. But you have like Colossians. At the end of Colossians, Paul says, make a copy of this and make sure Laodicea reads it. Revelation, written to the 7 churches in Asia. That was a lot of people. And of course, we know, guess what they did? They copied it and they sent it out. And now we still have them today. These were supposed to be very public works. Well, look what they do here. You can let very public things be said out of your mouth, and you can impart grace and edify. Ephesians 4:29, let no corrupt word proceed of your mouth, but what is good for necessary edification, that it may impart grace to the hearers. And do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, by whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. Let all bitterness, wrath, anger, clamor, and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. Ephesians 4 is the opposite chapter. It gives you a replacement for something sinful. Don't steal anymore, but give. What's the replacement here? Don't be bitter. Don't speak wrath. Don't speak anger. Don't speak clamor. Any evil speaking be away from you. Instead, edify. Instead, impart grace. Social media is fueled by one thing in this verse. And the one thing that I picked is this: bitterness. I believe that all the money that they make is because people are bitter. Twitter is the perfect example about this. Something bad happens to me in my life. I'm bitter about it, so then I tweet about it. And when I tweet about it, I have to get online, and then I see ads, and that's how they make their money, right? Bitterness. Now, wouldn't it be wonderful? Wouldn't it be wonderful? And I believe Christians can do this, that instead of letting it be fueled by our bitterness, but instead it is fueled by our desire to edify. If you're going to spend 40 minutes a day on social media, what if you redeem that time and say, you know what, I'm going to get on here and I'm going to encourage and I'm going to exhort and I'm going to edify and I'm going to let people know that I care about them. I'm going to share scriptures with people. I'm going to tell people that God still loves them and that they need to come back and correct people in a spirit of gentleness. There's all these wonderful things I can do by edifying my brethren, by edifying the world, because I have this avenue instead of being fueled by bitterness. That is a world, and that's a social media account that I would want to have. I would want to be a part of one that's all about edification. Let's post, let's speak about edification, not about bitterness. Another one here. Teach wisely. This is number 6. Teach wisely. I've noticed that there's this trend that for some reason, a lot of people on social media, especially brethren, want to constantly be teaching. And that can be good. We can go to Hebrews 5 and we can see that people were supposed to have grown to the spiritual knowledge. They should have been teachers. They should have been out there finding avenues to teach people about the gospel. Now, the thing is, though, is you got to make sure that you are able to teach. We go to James, and I didn't want to, beat this horse with a dead stick, because sometimes I feel like I'm doing that with this idea about teaching. But you do not have to write articles on Facebook to be a good Christian. I think I've said that about 5 times up here. You do not have to write articles and teach in this way to be a good Christian. It's not in here. You could be like me, think, you know what, I'm not a very good writer. I don't think I can really give out my thoughts in a very good way through writing. I'm going to find a different way to teach. Maybe I'll go to my neighbors and I'll knock on their door and ask if they want to read Mark together. That's okay, all right? But what you need to make sure is that you find what you're able to do and you do it. If you're not able to do it in a certain avenue and you think, I'm just going to be confusing, I'm going to hinder the gospel in some way, then you should just stay away from that and find a different avenue. This is what he tells Timothy, 2 Timothy 2:23. But avoid foolish and ignorant disputes, knowing that they generate strife. And a servant of the Lord must not quarrel, but be gentle to all, able to teach, patient, in humility correcting those who are in opposition, if God perhaps will grant them repentance, so that they may know the truth, and that they may come to their senses and escape the snares of the devil, having been taken captive by him to do his will. So you want to teach on social media. Number 1, make sure that you want to teach the truth. That should be number 1. This is what he tells to Timothy at the end. Number 2, make sure you're actually able to teach. Meaning that this is an avenue that you think you can effectively communicate your thoughts. Number 3, make sure you're gentle to all and patient and all those things. In humility, you can correct those in opposition. You have enough self-control that you can teach in this avenue. But, first thing that he says here, but avoid foolish and ignorant disputes. Are there foolish and ignorant disputes on social media? Every day. Every day. I get on the internet in the morning and I drink some coffee and I just read about what happened last night. It is ridiculous. What it is people are a lot more courageous when they're behind a computer screen when they are in real life. That's the reason why it's such a problem. And there's people that get on the internet and they don't want to be able to teach. They don't want to correct those in a spirit of gentleness, those that are in error. What they want to do is they want to fight. And they want to have a foolish dispute. Proverbs 18:2, it says, "A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only expresses his opinion." A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only expresses his opinion. What it is when you're in a conversation with someone on social media, if you feel like it's becoming a foolish dispute, this person doesn't want to understand, they just want to express their opinion, you need to get out of it. Because Paul told Timothy to avoid these things. There's nothing profitable from them. Nothing. What I usually do is, and this is a little trick that I've learned from my older brother, if you feel like you're in a foolish dispute, what you do is you message them and you say, "Hey, call me." Or maybe we can meet up and we can end this conversation. If they're serious and they want to have an understanding, they'll take the time to actually be courageous enough to talk to you face to face. If they don't want to, then they just want to hide behind their computer and just let them hide behind their computer. Like Paul and Barnabas, sometimes you have to kick the dust off your sandals and go to someone who wants to hear the truth. So we need to remember to teach wisely. Here's my last thing. Last point. Who is your top friend? I told this to the middle school kids and they didn't get it. Because again, there's actually a generation gap between me and them. MySpace was the original social media. It was. In my generation, we were in junior high and the first couple of years of high school, everyone had a MySpace. What MySpace offered was this thing called Top Friends. And what you did is you put your 10 top friends on what order they were closest to you. So number one friend, that's my buddy Forrest Ward. He's my best friend in elementary school. He's my top friend. Now, if you had a girlfriend, you had to make sure that she was your number one, or she would be very, very angry with you. She didn't take number two. She wanted number one. So you actually had to pick 10 random friends to show the whole world on your profile, these are my top 10 friends. I've been thinking about this. Who would my top 10 friends be? Well, to bring it to a sermon perspective, even though we're on social media accounts, Instagram and Snapchat, that you don't really have top friends anymore, you do have options. From your profile, can the people, the world tell that your top friend is the world? Everything about it. James 4:4, adulterers and adulteresses, do you not know that friendship with the world is an enmity with God? Whoever therefore wants to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. The people that try to put things out there to covet, the people who go on these social media accounts so they can covet and lust, who are they? They're friends with the world. And everything about their social media account, you can tell this person loves the world and they won't trade it for anything, not even God himself. You have another option, though. You can have Jesus Christ. Probably in one of the most tender moments with Jesus, talking to his disciples in John 15. Verse 14, he says, "You are my friends if you do whatever I command you. No longer do I call you servants, for a servant does not know what his master is doing, but I have called you friends, for all things that I have heard from my Father I have made known to you." Meaning that my Father has given me understanding. I'm not just going to be just your master. Master just gives commands to their servants, and they don't care if their servants understand. But Jesus is saying, I care that you understand, and that's what makes you my friends, if you keep my commandments with this understanding. Jesus offers you friendship. So what you can do is you can create a social account, whether it be on Instagram or Snapchat or Facebook or Twitter or whatever new thing it's going to be tomorrow. That someone can look at this from the world or a brother and say, you know what? This person's right here. Their friend is Jesus. Everything about this profile is all about Jesus. They be careful what they post. They're careful what they say. They want to edify. That's why they're here. Everything about them is because their top friend is Jesus Christ. And that's what Jesus offers us. Thank you for your close attention as always. And I thought that would be good things that we could think of and meditate on for the rest of the week and make some application. In John 15, what we just read, before he says, "You are my friends if you keep my commandments," Jesus says, "No greater love is shown than this, than for one to lay down his life for his friends." What's great about that is that's exactly what Jesus did for the disciples in John 15. That's exactly what he did for us. He wants to be our friend. And he knew that to be our friend, to be reconciled to him, first he would have to lay down his life. And he did that because he loved us, and he showed us the greatest amount of love that anyone could possibly do. If you need to be a friend of God this morning, and there's some way we can spiritually assist you with that, please come forward as we stand and as we sing.